This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter.
This is Tiny at Obsessive Tiny on Twitter.
And this is ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Welcome to the latest episode of The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show. Each episode, you can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, find the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, and subscribe to the subreddit at r/obsessiveviewer. And for the last time this year, if you're in the Indianapolis area, I'm going to be so glad when I don't have to stutter through that. If you're around Indianapolis, seriously, I could have been doing that the entire time. If you're around Indianapolis and you want to help celebrate the horror genre and support a fine local community, come see us at the Irving in Irvington at Shocktober in Irvington. It's a one-night event screening of short horror films directed by local filmmakers, and we're going to be giving away prizes. We're going to be raffling off prizes, having Q&As with the filmmakers. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be at the Irving Theater. All money we make is going to be going directly to the Irvington Historical Society. You can find more information at shocktoberinirvington.com, and also buy tickets online there too. There's links all over the place. Are you excited about Shocktober, Tiny?
I am looking forward to it.
Nice, me too. Yeah. It's going to be good.
It is.
Yeah. So this week's episode is a little different. We teased it in last week's episode. Basically, I blatantly stole this idea from another podcast. The Film Spotting SVU podcast has a segment where they basically tell each other a number, and then they pick a random title from their Netflix queue. But before we get started on that, Tiny, I kind of want to share a story. About one of the most exciting and best theater-going experiences of my entire life, really.
And I'm anxious to hear about it.
Yes,
seriously,
awesome.
I wish I could have gone.
Yeah, I was going to text you and be like, dude, you should be here. You should come here. But anyway, I went to a science fiction movie marathon at the Artcraft Theater in Franklin, Indiana. And yes, ladies, I am really single. No, but the Artcraft Theater, the historic Artcraft Theater in Franklin, Indiana, is a classic like Art Deco theater in the heart of Franklin, Indiana, which is about 35 miles away from where I live on the west side of Indianapolis. And they were hosting an event that was the 2-day long, 7-movie-long marathon of classic sci-fi movies, and holy crap, man, this was such a blast. Yeah. One of the sponsors of it was this company called Canines in Action, and they were having a giveaway of tickets for the weekend passes for the best sci-fi related pun on their Facebook page, and. Did you happen to read my pun, Tiny?
I did.
Okay, good. So for our listeners, the pun had to be sci-fi related, and you get bonus points if it was dog related. So, again, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm really single. The pun that I made was, and I quote, "The crew of the Enterprise were surprised when the transporter beamed up a dog. After a moment of consideration, Kirk decided to have McCoy evaluated. The dog became attached, and whenever anyone would approach McCoy, the dog would growl and get very territorial. You know how dogs get when they have bones." With bones, of course, being capitalized because that is the name of McCoy. Anyway.
I thought it was good.
Thank you.
You won, right?
I did.
Nice.
I was one of the entries that won, so I got weekend passes for the entire event, but I would have easily paid the $30 for the thing, which, man, 7 movies for $30 is an amazing deal.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and I'll just run through what movies they showed there. Okay. Friday night they had the original Godzilla.
Nice.
Which was the original 1954 Toho production Godzilla, Japanese everything. I was kind of worried going into it that it would be the 1956 Americanized edit of it with Raymond Burr. but fortunately it was the original 1954 movie. And I hadn't seen Godzilla, the original Godzilla, in probably a little over a decade when me and Mike were taking a film class at USI. And man, that it holds up so well. It's so awesome. I mean, I can't really speak that highly enough about it, but it's the Godzilla like franchise and everything kind of gets like what's the when you think of the Japanese Godzilla movies of old, what perspective do you have on that? What's your thoughts on that? Like your perspective,
like campiness, but like cheesiness and goofy guys in suits destroying miniature sets.
That's how it's perceived. And man, this original. Have you seen the original?
I've never seen it, but I have it on Blu-ray.
Oh, nice, nice. I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yes,
I have it on DVD. So screw you. No, but it's go home and watch it like as soon as you can because it's so much more than that. It's a really great. There's so much subtext about weaponization and the like nuclear arms and the humankind's tendency to put weapons above science. Basically, it's just such a powerful movie, and it does have a little bit of cheese. There's a line where it's like this is one of the guys, a scientist in the movie, refers to something as the oxygen destroyer, and then he says in the next line, in other words, it destroys oxygen, or something to that effect. Nice. It's really funny. But anyway,
I've heard that analogy before, though. Like the whole destruction and like the whole bomb scare, red scare stuff or whatever. I heard someone say that the U.S. had Dr. Strangelove and the Japanese had Godzilla.
Yeah. And it's more powerful because it's this was made a little over 10 years after, or probably less than 10 years after we nuked them.
Yeah. And
a big part of Godzilla is that he's radioactive and stuff. So there's like scenes where, and this is like freaking heartbreaking, where after a scene of destruction, like there's a quick shot of a guy having a Geiger counter to a kid and it going off crazy, and it's like it's moving, it's incredibly moving and really sad. Let's see. So that Godzilla, that was the first movie of Friday night, and by the way, I'm gonna have a post on obsessiveviewer.com with all this, links in the show notes and everything, with a less condensed version of my thoughts on it. The next movie was The War of the Worlds, a 1953 original.
Nice.
Tenny, have you seen this?
No.
Okay. I hadn't seen it either, and I have to say that going after playing it after Godzilla was a little bit to its detriment. Some of the acting was really cheesy and over the top and everything, but I will say that the special effects for 1953 of the Martians and their weapons was really really held up really well.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was it for Friday night, and then Saturday was 5 movies. I was there for 12 hours.
Jeez.
Yeah, and before I get into what the movies were and everything, I just want to mention that the Artcraft Theater is freaking amazing. Like, it's seriously incredible. I can't overstate it enough. Long time listeners will remember me raving about a movie theater in Osgood, Indiana called the Dam Theater. That it's the same kind of, it's like an Art Deco theater and everything. And I mean, I liked it a lot. I only went there once. But I just overall just had such a pleasant experience at the Artcraft that it makes me want to seek out these kinds of antique theaters and stuff like that. And so a couple of the things that were pretty interesting before I get into what all happened on Saturday is that before each screening, they do it seems like every year they do these marathons. Like they have like one marathon of each season of it, which I'm so disheartened because this is the 4th time that they've done it. The previous 3 times were 2 Alfred Hitchcock marathons, right? And a Universal Monsters marathon, which
nice.
That would have been so cool to see.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, but they had like a clipboard with sheets on it for people to request or recommend stuff. And I was very happy to see 2001 listed a lot, and
nice.
Blade Runner, and I put down 12 Angry Men.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and I really wanted to see like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington and all that. I'm gonna email them a very extensive list of recommendations and stuff,
and they will appreciate that.
I'm sure that they will. But it was kind of unique because with these marathons and stuff, the way that they do it is in between movies, they have everyone go into the lobby.
Really?
Yeah, so that they can sweep up and clean up and everything, which I thought was a nice economic way efficient way of doing it, I guess. Also, before each screening was everyone in the theater had to stand and sing along to the national anthem.
Oh.
Which was interesting.
Yeah.
It was interesting. I will say that it got the blood flowing and all that, and not sitting in one spot, but it was kind of unique. After 7 movies, I was a little bit like, okay, guys, but it was cool because it was shot it wasn't like everyone just standing around just singing it at anything. Like they played a reel of the national anthem. It was pretty cool. It was nice. It made me feel, if this is possible, it made me feel nostalgic for a time in which I was never alive. And then, in lieu of like trailers and stuff, because this is an independent theater and everything, they played old Looney Tunes clips.
Oh, cartoons. That's awesome!
Very awesome.
Wow.
And never saw the same cartoon twice in the 7 movies. So they must have quite a bit. I was really, really partial to the Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner ones, but
nice.
But for the most part, all of them were a lot of fun. It was such a unique experience. I can't really overstate it.
Well, it sounds like they were like super committed to that. Mm-hmm. To sticking to the ambiance and the that whole genre or era, I guess is a better word. Oh yeah.
And that kind of leads into the first movie of Saturday, basically. I wasn't sure about this movie when I saw the thing, because this was the one movie that wasn't like from the 50s or 60s or anything. It's this movie called Gila, spelled Giala. It's from 2012. It's a movie. It was filmed and produced in Franklin, Indiana. Mm-hmm. And it's about a mutated Gila monster that rises up and wreaks havoc over the town of Franklin in the 1950s. So this movie, like I saw the trailer on IMDb and I was like, okay, this looks like it could be fun, but it also looks kind of just a little too cheesy for me. Yeah. So I really contemplated just skipping out on that one and going to the second movie instead. But I went, and I'm so happy that I did, because this movie was delightful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such a fun like throwback to like 50s monster movies and stuff like that. And I mean the acting is pretty subpar and the story is a little flimsy, but I mean the charisma of the actors, like there's so many, like it has such a kind of wholesome 50s town nostalgia kind of feel to it, mm-hmm. that like all the characters are really likable and really fun to watch. And there's a lot of bloodshed in it.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. Like within about 15-20 minutes, maybe like 5 or 6 people have already been killed by this monster.
Jeez.
And I have to say, I'm really impressed that for a movie that was locally produced, and I'm sure obviously independently produced, in Franklin, Indiana, of all places, the special effects and like the animation of the monster was really, really well done.
Nice.
Yeah, and also I must give a shout out to the sound design of it, because like hearing that monster roar was just the standout of the movie. It was amazing.
Nice.
So that's Gila, and it's also available on Amazon Prime. Nice. Streaming. So check it out if you have that, because it's a lot of fun. And also, it features a couple shots of the Artcraft in it. So
nice.
Yeah. Next up after that was Invasion of the Body Snatchers from 1956. Mm-hmm. Have you seen any of the...
I have. I've seen that one.
Nice.
The 56 one, yeah.
Nice. What did you think of it?
Yeah, for the time, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it that was in the middle of all the, the like the B and C movie, sci-fi movies that were like really crappy.
Yeah.
and it has a little bit of that aesthetic to it, but it has a much better script, I think, and the story itself was really compelling. I liked it.
Totally. I liked it a lot. It was I I wrote that it's a powerful rumination on the nature of paranoia and fear. It was also made during the Red Scare and everything, so there had some subtext to it there. I really, really liked it. It made me really want to seek out the 1978 remake with Donald Sutherland. Yeah, I really liked it. That's all I'll say about that.
Yeah.
Next up was, by the way, during that movie, our friend Matt Quiet from Nerds Domain arrived at the theater with a couple of friends, and so I got to hang out with him for a while. And also Shirley eventually joined him there too. So
cool.
Yeah, it was fun. It was totally fun. Then next up was Forbidden Planet, 1956. You haven't seen that, have you?
I have not.
Okay. I can't remember if I brought it up on the podcast or not, because I watched it a couple months ago. Just for S's and G's.
Yeah.
But it's such a good movie. It's so great. It's a classic sci-fi movie. It was the main inspiration for Gene Roddenberry making Star Trek.
Wow.
The original series. And I mean, if you watch Star Trek and then you go into Forbidden Planet with that knowledge, you will see you'll see exactly how it influenced him. Like the movie is about human beings have mastered interstellar space travel, or faster than light speed travel, and so there's an expedition toward this planet where this crew of spacefaring people from the not the Federation, that's Star Trek, but from the equivalent of the Federation in this movie, they go to this planet that a scientist has been at for forever, and they've lost contact with him, I guess. And so they go to this planet and find that he's the only one there, and that he and his daughter have basically been living there. And it's this very interesting kind of it's loosely based on Shakespeare's the Tempest, and it's really interesting how it kind of plays into the psyche of people and not necessarily isolation, but the id basically of people. I guess. So it's really good, and you can definitely see where Gene Roddenberry took a lot of inspiration from it, because there's a lot of the archetypes of like Kirk and Bones and Spock are kind of there in very loose terms.
Okay.
There's a lot more to it, but it's definitely worth checking out and seeing it. Oh my God, I forgot to mention this. The Artcraft has this policy, or this, not necessarily policy. Well, one of the policies is that they will only screen a movie if it's been out for longer than 10 years.
Interesting.
Like that's the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And also 90% of the films shown there are on 35 millimeter film.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and like the only way that it's not on 35 millimeter is if it's not available to them.
Wow.
Like one of the guys that was there was talking about how he had to go through a bunch of paperwork just to get Godzilla. And I don't think they actually ended up getting Godzilla. I think they got a Blu-ray print of it because there was so much paperwork. But there was like he mentioned, like there was a paperwork, just a ton of stuff that he had to go through just to get the rights to get it.
Really?
Yeah. So they go through a lot of legal stuff in order to get their stuff.
Yeah.
Finally, the last two movies of the night were Planet of the Apes, 1968.
Nice.
And Night of the Living Dead, 1968.
Okay. Nice.
Which we screened at Shocktober in Irvington last year.
So way to copy this Artcraft.
Right. But I will say Planet of the Apes. Oh, by the way, seeing the 35 millimeter print of Forbidden Planet was really awesome. It was a little bit of an aged one, but it was like I was sitting kind of closer to the back, and I could smell it coming from the projection booth, and it was so. I mean, it was a little strong, but it was also like this is such a unique experience for me.
Yeah.
Because you just don't see that anymore. You don't experience that.
Is that on Netflix or anything?
Forbidden Planet?
Yeah.
No.
Dang.
No. But it's available for rent on iTunes and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Planet of the Apes, also 35 millimeter, just beautiful to see on the big screen. It was amazing. And I cannot overstate how amazing it was being in a packed theater and hearing, like, a packed theater watching Planet of the Apes on 35 millimeter in the theater and hearing everyone applaud and cheers. And applause when Charlton Heston said his iconic "Take your damn dirty paws off me," or "Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty apes." Like that at that scene, everyone just erupted in applause. It was so amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then Night of the Living Dead was awesome. It was kind of funny because that was a very fitting movie to end on, because I kind of felt like I was a little bit of the Living Dead there, because I was just exhausted. I even contemplated leaving before that screening, but I'm glad that I stuck around because it was a lot of fun. So yeah, and I just want to say that they have more screenings throughout the rest of the year. Right now, tickets are on sale for their Christmas screenings that are Tiny. You're gonna love this. November 27th and 28th, they're showing Elf.
Nice.
December 4th, 5th, and 6th, they're showing A Christmas Story.
Nice.
December 11th, 12th, and 13th, they're showing White Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
And December 18, 19, and 20, they're showing Christmas Vacation. So
wow,
it's if you're able to go there, I highly recommend it, because it's such a unique theater and a unique experience. And I mentioned when I was leaving, I talked to the one of the guys working there. I was like, hey, I would love to come down and like interview guys for the podcast about this and all that. And like they thanked me for tweeting throughout the whole event, because I tweeted and make sure I tagged them on everything. So these poor people, like they're trying to do this event, and then they keep getting notifications on their phone of this guy.
Like the projector is trying to like line up the film,
right?
And it's like, ding,
damn it. Yeah.
I actually saw a movie there when I was really young, and the only thing I remember is, I don't even remember what movie I saw there, but I remember thinking how cool it was that they pulled up like the big red velvet curtain before.
Yes.
I was like, whoa, why don't they do this anymore? That was cool.
Right?
You know, and I that's the only thing I remember. I was probably like 6 or 7. But yeah, that's I haven't been back since. I definitely want to go now.
It's so awesome. They're showing here in a couple weeks. This weekend they're showing Bride of Frankenstein. And
that's a good one.
Yeah. And then next week they're showing Gremlins, I think.
Awesome.
And yeah, but unfortunately I won't be able to go next week or anything, because and this is transitioning into our, not necessarily our topic yet, but we, Tiny, have press passes for the first time for
we do.
the Heartland Film Festival.
Yes.
Yeah, which is exciting. I'm excited for it.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Yeah, I've been spending the last couple days at work kind of going through the schedule and circling what movies I want to see and what times I want to see, and it's crazy because this weekend we have Shocktober in Irvington on Friday, and then Saturday I'm planning on spending the day at the theater.
Nice.
And then Sunday spending the day at the theater. And then Monday, if I can get the day off, the day at the theater. And then the rest of the week basically coming home from work, changing clothes, and going to the theater and seeing 1 or 2 movies each day. It's going to be exhausting, but it's going to be fun.
That's cool.
So, Tiny, how many movies are you going to see?
I'm not sure yet. I mean, you just gave me my pass and everything. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Probably at lunch tomorrow or sometime this week. I'll sit there and go through what I want to see.
Yeah, there's. I'm kind of bummed because I told you about this last week, but where there's opening it with the movie Room with Brie Larson, and that's the same night as Shocktober in Irvington, and they don't have any other screenings of that movie, so
it's a bummer.
Yeah, but anyway, we'll report back about Heartland Film Festival in a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. But for now, Tiny, we are doing our main topic.
Finally.
Half an hour into the episode. If you listened to last week's episode, you'll know that we kind of decided to do something a little different. I mentioned it earlier on the podcast, kind of ripped it straight out of Compton. No, sorry, Film Spotting SVU. They basically take a movie and they assign each other a number, and then they watch whatever movie is on their Netflix queue in that number. That's one of the segments of their podcast, and I recommend that podcast because it's awesome. Matt Singer and Allison Wilmore are awesome. So what we did was we just said, hey, 101.
Yep.
And so we each picked number 101 from our respective Netflix queues. Mm-hmm. And before we get started on yours, Tiny, I do want to mention that maybe we should have like a veto policy or something, or like a backup number.
Yeah.
Because do you want to go ahead and talk about the movie that was number 101 on your list?
Yes, number 101 on my list was a documentary called The Source Family. It came out 2014, I believe.
I think so, and I think so.
Something like that. But this is one of those movies where I'm sure anyone who has Netflix has had this before. You open up Netflix and you're searching for things to watch, something that sounds good, and you end up scrolling through like all your recommendations, and you end up spending like 45 minutes or an hour and a half just adding things to your queue.
The plight of the Netflix user. Yes.
Yeah. And so The Source Family was a result of me, being a pretentious douche and watching a bunch of documentaries, and so Netflix basically recommends every single documentary they have to me, and I end up going through and just like, yes. Ooh, it's about that's post-war. That's about art, and oh my God, a cult. And so
that one's about dams.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. And so that's how I stumbled upon The Source Family. And what this film is about is essentially a cult in the late 60s all the way through the late 70s, of basically just kind of your standard, when you think of like a hippie commune kind of culty thing. This is like the prime example, and I believe it's one of the most famous examples. It's about this guy named Jim Baker, he's like an Army veteran, and he was a business owner in Los Angeles, and he owned this vegetarian restaurant. And it turns out he's just this incredibly charismatic and charming person. He's like one of those people that's kind of larger than life, like everyone's just kind of drawn to him, and he just has this ability to have people follow him, and people want to listen to him. He's just one of those charismatic people. And he basically just started sharing his ideas, and through this restaurant in LA kind of started, it's called The Source Restaurant. Just basically started a cult. I mean, that's all there is to it. It was a relatively peaceful cult. It was influenced by the free love culture of the late 60s, and it's, it was all these people who were seeking something positive amidst Vietnam and all the political turmoil throughout the world, and it's part of the hippie movement, and that's what these people were. They ended up buying a house, and they all moved in together, and they smoked weed and took acid and mushrooms and all that stuff, and just they kind of treated this guy Jim Baker, who later changed his name to Jehovah. They just basically treated him like a prophet, and later on throughout the genesis of the life of the cult, he was basically just considered himself a god. So that's kind of the story, and it's an interesting story. It's kind of crazy. It's interesting to see. You hear about that kind of stuff, but it was kind of cool to hear firsthand accounts of the people who actually lived through it and everything. So that was good, but the documentary itself really wasn't that great.
You don't say.
I thought it was okay.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated their ability to. I loved the music, the way because this, of course, they were a bunch of hippies. They made their own music, and so it's very rare and kind of coveted music in the psychedelic genre, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And so they used the Source family's music throughout the whole documentary, and it created a certain ambiance that I think was fitting for the documentary, and I actually liked their commitment to use only Source family music. That was pretty cool.
Nice. They got it from the source.
They did, straight from the source's mouth.
Damn it.
You're welcome.
Oh my God.
And the other thing that I thought was a positive about the documentary is that they kind of showed how these kinds of cults, essentially, there's no other word for it, these groups, how they they have kind of a set course in their evolution, because it all starts out very humble, and they all have a leader, but after a while the leader starts controlling people a little more, right. And then it turns out, oh, I'm actually God. And then it turns out either the leader dies and everybody leaves, or the leader convinces everyone to kill themselves. That's kind of how those types of groups and cults evolve. And they sort of, I kind of appreciate the way that was laid out throughout the documentary, and it was addressed.
You don't approve of that, right, or anything?
No.
Okay.
Of course not.
I need to change some of the plans I have for obsessive viewerism going forward.
Yeah, the guy who has a podcast called The Secular Perspective, totally all about that.
Nice.
Yeah. But no.
Secularperspective.com. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. But I appreciated those things about it, but at the end of the day, it was just kind of a shoddy documentary. It was a little too much talking heads, and just kind of I would have appreciated a little more, some like expert psychologists talking about how this works, or I don't know. I would have appreciated a little more analysis and a little more objectivity, because it was mostly just the people who lived it being interviewed.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Like I said, that's something I'm interested in seeing. I want to hear their side of the story, but I would have appreciated a little more objectivity in it.
Not monopolizing the entire documentary, basically.
Right. Because and to the credit of the people who were interviewed, some of them still long for those days, and they kind of still hold to that belief system, and they miss it. But there's others who completely admit that it was craziness, and it was not necessarily the best idea, and it was a kind of the leader kind of preyed on these people a little bit. Jim Baker did, and that was good to see, but it wasn't quite the level of objectivity I was looking for in a documentary like this.
Interesting.
But I just thought it was okay. I've seen worse, and I've seen way, way better. Mm-hmm. So how much of it did you watch the whole thing?
No. Okay. So I got maybe like 40 minutes into it.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, from the start, I started it, and I was already kind of crunched for time, so I could either watch that, or I could watch the thing that you're going to bring up for Potpourri.
Mm-hmm.
Failed miserably at watching either of them, really, because I couldn't finish that thing, and I didn't finish the Source family.
Yeah.
From the outset, I was really disappointed that this was not a documentary about the Source Awards. Kind of was really all about that. But honestly, from the start, the way I could appreciate the way that they handled some things, like incorporating their own music into it did lead to a certain ambiance of it. Like, I didn't actually pick up on it, but in retrospect, I'm like, oh, okay, I could, if I was more invested in the story that was being told in the subject matter, I would have been more drawn into it because of the music too. So I could totally see your point there. But maybe I'm just misinformed, but I didn't know anything about the Source family going in. I feel like there was several minutes, or maybe 15 minutes before I even knew exactly what was going on exactly in terms of who these people were and everything. It was kind of, it didn't really give me the information up front to hook me in as someone who isn't that knowledgeable of the Source family or of that, what the documentary was about. So that kind of had some things going against it there from the beginning, and kind of put me in a bad headspace going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Then I kind of was like, okay, well, maybe this can just be in the background while I edit my Artcraft post for the site.
Mm-hmm.
Then I looked up, and there was a shot of what would have been a stillborn baby.
Yeah.
Being born, and I was like, I don't want to see that. I haven't, to the documentarian's credit, I hadn't considered whether or not I wanted to see a baby being born dead.
Yeah.
And turns out I don't. The baby lived though, because it was a miracle. But I was just like, well, I don't show that. I didn't get why that particular shot made it into the film. It wasn't constructive for me. It didn't serve a purpose other than make me think, okay, I'm going to watch The Walking Dead now.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
How did you feel about that?
I thought it was hugely effective because,
Really?
you know, in the eyes of the people who witnessed it, it was literally a miracle.
Yeah. Okay.
Because, I mean, I don't want to spoil it, but it was literally a miracle that this child was essentially stillborn, born dead, and within a minute or two was brought to life by Jim Baker, or Jehovah, as they called him. That's a pretty amazing thing, and I think the fact that it existed on film, I think he almost had to show it because it was such a historic thing for this group and in this story that to leave it out, I think would have been a huge oversight. And it was, so many people talked about it like it was a miracle, and they said it was the most amazing thing they've ever seen. So I think it'd be kind of crazy to leave it out.
I concede my point then. I can totally see that.
It was not a desirable thing to see.
Right.
I totally concede that. I don't want to see it necessarily either, but
then again, you weren't in the middle of editing a post for a website and then looked up to see it. You weren't invested in what was being told to you. So you do have that going for you.
Yeah.
And also it was not about a hip hop award ceremony. And then I just kind of felt like, in terms of the subject matter and like hippies and like communes like that and 60s free love culture, that kind of thing, it's just not something that's really in my wheelhouse of interests or anything. And they referenced around the point that I turned it off, they'd mentioned something about Jim Baker wanting to, I don't remember exactly what it was, but they were being more careful because the Manson murders were happening. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, so you're kind of basically, you're referencing something that's a far more interesting subject matter. And it's just like, I would much rather see a documentary about Manson and the Manson family rather than the Source family. I did think it was interesting that they had the bit about polygamy, how he had multiple wives and how that affected the family's view of him. Mm-hmm. I thought that was an interesting take, and if it's explored more throughout the rest of the documentary, then good on it. But I don't think it was really for me, and I won't end up finishing it.
That's fair. Yeah. I think it was just okay.
Yeah. Cool. Would you recommend that people watch it on Netflix?
Well, to your point, if you're interested in that subject matter, definitely. I mean, it's probably one of the more resourceful documentaries on the
swing and a miss.
No,
when you say from the source's mouth so early on, you can't match that.
Yeah, I can't top that. That's true. So, but
I give you, I commend you for your effort.
Yeah, I tried. So yeah, if you're interested in that subject material, then yeah, it's obviously a great example of it. But and I wasn't overly interested in it myself, but I thought there could be something cool in there. So
cool. Yeah. Do you know any other similar documentaries that deal with it better?
I don't think I do.
Did I just spring this on you?
You did. I didn't look into it because after this I realized, I mean, there's some interesting stuff there, but there's way better documentaries about other subjects that I find way more interesting.
Right.
I enjoyed the damn documentary way more than this one.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
God.
So, Maddie, what did you watch?
I watched 1994's The Crow.
The Crow.
Which was a Gap movie for me. I'd never seen The Crow. Very popular movie. Fans of The Office will know that it is Dwight Schrute's all-time favorite movie.
Yes.
As referenced in Season 2, Episode The Fire. When they're saying they're desert island movies, and then Dwight kicks the wall and says The Crow. Anyway, I thought it was okay. Wasn't really that into it. Really, I wasn't. Well, okay, so I really dug the style and the aesthetic of it. It really, really made me want to revisit Dark City, which was made by the same director. A year or two after The Crow. So for those who don't know, The Crow is Brandon Lee's final movie. I think he was just starting his career, really.
Yeah, he was young.
Yeah, the son of Bruce Lee. I believe it's an adaptation of a comic book in which Eric Draven is killed along with his girlfriend, and then he is resurrected by a crow, it seems, and given is basically invincible. Like like if he gets injured, he heals himself. So he goes back to exact vengeance on the group of hoodlums that killed him and his girlfriend. Mm-hmm. So it's an interesting revenge story. But I couldn't really connect to Eric Draven as a character. I don't feel like there was enough setup to his character and to his relationship with the girlfriend. Like we kind of get just thrown into the mix where like it's very quickly develops or very quickly establishes the world that it's in, which is very grungy, like mid 90s, like grungy dark depiction of I don't even know. I don't even think it's a futuristic society or anything. It's just a present day dirty streets of
it's LA, right?
I almost want to say it's Detroit, but
I
think one of the hoodlums said your Motor City ass from somewhere, so he might have been referencing something else, but it might be LA. I don't know, but it's a very dark, kind of grungy, kind of aesthetic to it, which I was really into. Like I thought that the design of the world was really handled well, and the use of rain throughout it was kind of a really unique, not unique, but a really effective way to establish and maintain the tone of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Like going back to Ernie Hudson's in this movie, Tiny.
Yeah, he is.
I got a kick out of that. He was cool. He was a cop. But anyway, so the movie, I couldn't really connect to it on a story level, really. It was cool to see Eric Draven go through and kick ass and kill people, but it was also just like it just didn't really land for me on a personal level, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very famous that Brandon Lee died during the filming of this movie. And do you know anything about how he died during filming or anything?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So I knew going into it that he had died, and I knew the way that he died was that very tragically they for a scene in which he gets shot. They were firing blanks, obviously,
mm-hmm.
but I think piece of a spent cartridge or something like that was lodged in the barrel,
mm-hmm.
and so when the blank fired, it actually got lodged in was propelled into him and
it struck his spine. I think.
Did it?
I think that's maybe what killed him.
That's
like it went through his abdomen and hit his
mm-hmm.
spine. I can't really remember.
Yeah, I didn't see that on the Snopes page, but I mean it's possible.
I don't know.
But anyway, he died from a, I guess, gunshot wound. With that
basically,
yeah, because it wasn't like a full on round.
Shrapnel, basically.
Shrapnel, yeah. And this is kind of morbid, but I was kind of watching it with that knowledge in my head, and I was thinking, like, I wonder what scene it was that he died in.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of a screwed up thing to say, but he gets shot a lot in this movie.
He does.
It's kind of insane. Like, there's so many scenes in which he's literally being filled with bullets.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, on one hand, it was like, I wonder if this is the scene, and on the other hand, it's like, this is a weird movie to see that a guy died during filming from a gunshot wound, to see him get shot so many times in so many scenes. But
it's almost insensitive.
It is. It's unnerving, really.
Yeah, it is.
And but the truth is that he had died while they were shooting a scene, the flashback scene of him being murdered in the movie.
Yeah.
And the scene was supposed to be that he was shot while carrying groceries, and the film. There were rumors that the scene of him being shot in the movie is what was the actual footage of him being shot in real life, which is just patently false.
Right, it's untrue.
Yeah, they. It's reported that they destroyed the film of the footage,
which is the right thing to do.
Yeah. But then, I mean, I believe that this is probably after the police took it for evidence and all that.
Right.
But yeah, so they ended up reshooting that, and they obscured his face during that sequence because he wasn't available for filming anymore.
Right.
That sounds really horrible. Yeah. Anyway, so there's no weird thing there. But one thing that kind of struck me about the movie, kind of wrapping up, because I don't really have that much more to say about it, really.
Mm-hmm.
Is I had the, not expectations, but I had the the weight of this movie's importance, I guess, in the history of cinema, weighing on me. So I knew that Brandon Lee was the son of Bruce Lee, so I just kind of assumed that there would be a lot of martial arts in this movie.
Oh.
And there's not. It's really, there's not much in it.
No.
Yeah, and I was kind of like, okay, that's, I didn't know what to expect, or it just wasn't really what I expected.
Yeah. Was Brandon Lee a martial artist?
I have no idea.
I don't know either.
Yeah. I will say that he did a fine job, though.
Yeah.
He kind of had a charisma to him, and it's kind of weird. He kind of reminded me of Heath Ledger.
Oh yeah.
Oddly enough,
Totally.
yeah. It was very, that was added another bit of surreality. Wow.
Surreality.
Surreality.
I don't know. I'm not sure if that's a word.
I don't know either. Surrealism.
There you go.
Holy crap. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'd give it probably a 6.0 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it was cool. It was good.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. I wasn't feeling it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've seen this movie before. Did you watch it again recently by chance?
I didn't. I wanted to, but I didn't. I've seen it before. I saw it back when I was a teenager in like high school or something. And yeah, I kind of echo most of what you said too.
Nice.
I think Alexander Proyas, the director, or Alex Proyas, the director, is he's a good director, and I think he has a very like clear vision of what he wants his movies to look like, and the feel he's going for. But I think as a result of that, a lot of other stuff takes a back seat.
Yeah.
Because I felt the same way about his other famous movie, Dark City. He's done some other movies. I just looked him up. He directed I, Robot.
Yeah, that's right.
Had no idea. I completely forgot. Because that is not in the same aesthetic universe as these other two movies.
Did you see iRobot by chance?
Oh, yeah.
Did you like it?
Well, that was a pretty good movie.
Nice.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
Nothing incredible, but a solid movie. But I felt I had the same feeling in Dark City as I did with The Crow, in that I was like, man, this looks amazing. I mean, the palette of this movie is just impressive. But what's going on again? Who's doing what now? What's the story? Who's this guy? I think everything else just kind of took a backseat to it, and that's unfortunate because it doesn't have to be that way.
Exactly.
I remember very little of The Crow. I remember snippets of like visuals, but that's about it. I don't remember the story. Yeah.
There's a scene early on in The Crow where basically Eric Draven has been resurrected, and he's walking around. He's disoriented and all that. He goes back to the place where he died, where he lived, I guess, and you see these flashbacks to his death and to his relationship and all that, and then he looks in the mirror and he just gets really upset, and this is the moment where he's like, I'm gonna exact revenge for my death, and then there's a mask there, so maybe he was inspired by just seeing the mask, but he puts on the white paint. Just other than the visual cue of a mask, like a kind of masquerade mask or something, on the mirror, there's really no reason why he did that. And then he sets out to do it, and it's kind of like I feel like there were like just steps missed in his growth as a character, in which we could have latched onto him. Latched onto his journey, really. And it was kind of weird. I don't know. I did like the interplay between him and Ernie Hudson's character. I thought that was fun. But yeah, the Crow is just okay by my book.
Yeah, but it's such a legendary movie because it's famous for Brandon Lee's death, which was highly tragic. Just because he grew up without a father, pretty much, and Bruce Lee was, a definitive icon without question. He was so much more than an actor, and he represented so many things, and he tragically died young. And so, I think Bruce Lee fans wanted to see a lot of Brandon Lee's father in him. They wanted him to kind of take up that baton, have the baton passed to him, if you will. And he also tragically died. He was in his 20s, I think, early 20s even. And to have him die tragically as well, it's a remarkable event and like a remarkable story, but it's just so tragic, and it's it's become a huge part of the movie's legacy.
Right.
So I mean, I think it's absolutely worth seeing for those reasons.
Yeah, I would say it's definitely worth seeing, and you know, you might be more into it than I was. It just wasn't really for me.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't say that the tragedy behind the scenes really would have affected my taking of the movie, really.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so that's The Crow. It's on Netflix and also on Amazon Prime.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the U.S., at least, I don't know about it internationally, but because Netflix is really weird about that.
Yeah.
So is that it for the? How did you feel about this, Tiny?
I thought it was a good idea. I think it's a fun experiment. You know,
Yeah.
It kind of I had the Source Family in my queue forever and had been meaning to watch it and just never did. So I think it's good for that. It kind of forces you to watch something you've been pushing to the background.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which is good. You know, you don't have a choice. It's just kind of like, and it allows us to go into something almost just go into something very objectively.
Right, because that's one of the things, and this might be a little behind the curtain, inside baseball and everything, but one of the reasons why we decided to do this was because we kind of struggled to come up with the topic for this week's episode. So this was kind of a way to switch things up. So let us know what you thought of this, though, because it's kind of weird, because we're usually a movie and TV podcast that deals with a specific topic, so these movies don't really have that much of a similarity to them.
Right.
And I still do think that we should have a veto policy in place. Yeah, so.
That's fair.
Yeah. Or you do watch a lot of documentaries, like 4 vetoes in place. Is that good?
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, maybe we'll do this in the future or something. Do it again when we draw a blank.
Yeah.
So, let's go to Potpourri, though. First, we're going to play for the last time the promo for Shocktober in Irvington. Here it is.
Join the Obsessive Viewer podcast on October 16th, 2015 at the Irving Theater in Indianapolis for The Obsessive Viewer presents Shocktober in Irvington Part 2. It's a one-night event screening of short horror films from local artists J.P. Leck and Snapshot Productions. There will be giveaways, raffles, interviews with the filmmakers, and so much more. All proceeds will go directly to the Irvington Historical Society. Go to shocktoberinirvington.com for more details. And prepare to be shocked.
All right, so thank you to J.P. Leck, whose short film The Lantern will be premiering this Friday at the Irving Theater at our Shocktober in Irvington event. He provided the promo for Shocktober in Irvington 2. So this part of the podcast is our Potpourri section, which is the section of the podcast where we basically bring up anything we want as long as it smells good, anything that we've watched, looking forward to watching, news, anything like that. Since I kind of jumped the gun and did a whole Potpourri section for the first 20 minutes of this episode, how about you go ahead and give us what you got for Potpourri, Tiny?
Sure. I mentioned last week I was super excited about The Walking Dead. That was my Potpourri last week. And I hate to double down, but having watched it, I really wanted to talk about it this week as my Potpourri. It's became one of the top 5 episodes of the whole series for me.
Nice.
I really loved the style in which they told the story of this episode. And I'm not gonna spoil anything.
Right.
What they did with this episode, the story that unfolds in the 95 minutes or so, the 90-minute long episode, I feel like in the past this story would have been, we would have only gotten like a third of what we got in this episode. They just would have drug it out for 6 episodes. And this isn't a spoiler, but it turns out it's gonna lead into the second episode, which I think was fine because it's a really extensive event that occurs in this episode. So I'm completely fine with it taking 2 episodes or maybe even 3. But it just I was so happy to see them take a story like this with so much volume. There's so much there, and it's such a huge thing, and they packed a lot of it into one episode. It was really, really exciting. and through all of the action and the drama and everything that occurs in the movie, or I'm sorry, in this episode, they managed to wonderfully squeeze in a lot of like character development and
nice.
and some very nice dialogue scenes that I think have been some of the best in the show's history so far. I just really liked what they did. There's visual choices they made that were kind of threw me at first, but then I figured out what they were doing. I think they telegraphed it pretty well what they were doing, or it was easy to figure out what they were doing. And I immediately was like, okay, this is a good idea. I like this. I like how they're presenting this. It's reminiscent of some other shows. Not to say that they stole the idea, but
right.
It was just a good choice as a storytelling tool. I think a visual tool that they used. I'm trying to be as vague as possible. Hopefully, those of you who have already watched it will know what I'm talking about.
When you say that it's reminiscent of other shows, are you talking about the technique of actually the nonlinear format of it, or the plan that they had in place for the issue that the problem that they had?
The storytelling process, not the story itself.
Okay.
The storytelling process.
Okay.
The visual way they tell the story.
I think I got you.
Yeah. And also the nonlinear stuff. I mean, that's been used in so many other shows.
Right.
I really loved I loved the choices they made for this opening episode. And I say this all the time with The Walking Dead because it can be so hit or miss, but I hope it carries on throughout the season.
Right.
Because that's what we've said that before on this podcast. They will have a great episode, and I'm like, that's so good. And then the next one will just be 43 minutes of them talking in a room
and then walking around in a storm and sitting around in a barn.
Yeah.
Still did not like that episode.
Yeah, I don't even really remember it that much.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you want me to talk about it for a bit?
Yeah, I'll just say this was a peak in the show in a show that has tons of peaks and valleys. This was a really high peak.
Nice, and it's sixth season. This was the sixth season premiere.
Yeah.
Titled "First Time Again," which that's something that I really enjoyed. I haven't finished the episode because, like I said, the damn Source family got in the way, and so I got about 26 minutes left in this episode. So it could all go tits up from my opinion of it now, but I really enjoyed that kind of narrative technique that they utilized for it. I thought that was really cool. I thought the big wide shots of their problem was like kind of really basic cable CGI kind of green screen effects there, but
with as successful as the show is, you think they could pull that off a little bit better?
Yeah. It's funny because I'd seen people online compare it to Hard Home, the episode of Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
Just in terms of volume, I guess.
That's fair.
And I was like, okay, yeah, I
Hard
see
Home
that.
was definitely better. I mean,
I like my thought when seeing the scale of it, which isn't the scale of the issue that they're dealing with, was that okay, yeah, this is an AMC budget. They don't have HBO numbers,
yeah,
or HBO money, HBO money,
yeah.
But something that I did like about it, the first 40 or 50 minutes of it that I saw was I really liked the inclusion or the kind of growth of Morgan and Rick, and that's where the title of the episode comes from. Is that Morgan tells Rick that they need to start over. They need to meet again for the first time again.
Yeah,
and I have really high hopes for their dynamic.
Me too.
Going forward, unless one or both of them die in the last 20 minutes of the episode. Who knows with this show? But since I haven't seen it yet, but I just really like their dynamic. And there's a scene where they're this isn't really a spoiler, but they're transporting a body to bury it outside of the limits of the community, and Rick is very insistent that he's like, we don't bury killers in here. Or something. I can't do a Rick Grimes voice. And then Morgan's like, you're a killer, and I'm a killer.
Yeah.
We're both killers. And I feel like that scene and that the tone of that, or the subtext of that dialogue between them, I hope that that's kind of a central theme to their arcs throughout the season. Because I have really high hopes for that based on that one scene. Also it was kind of shot from, trunk perspective, almost in a style similar to Tarantino.
It was very Tarantino-ish.
Yeah, only not as like in the trunk. It's more like, okay, we took out the back seat and we're like shooting from inside.
Yeah.
But they tried, assuming that that's what they were going for. But
yeah.
New characters though. Ethan Embry popped up as kind of a whiny, worrier. I couldn't think of like a word for that, but I like him as an actor.
I'm such a fan of his.
Me too. He was in obviously one of my favorite movies, Can't Hardly Wait.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that this brings back his career a little bit.
Me too. I loved him on Brotherhood. That's the show. The show Brotherhood. I think that's his best work he's ever done. It's strictly a dramatic performance. Loved him in that show. He's phenomenal. He missed out on awards in that show, in my opinion. So I was excited to see him. Yeah. So again, I haven't finished the episode, but I want to mention. What is his name? Oh my God! Straight Outta Compton. I can't think of his name either.
Hawkins? Corey Hawkins.
Corey Hawkins.
Yeah, Corey Hawkins is in this episode, and he's in the cast now. I believe he's going to be a series regular. He plays Heath. And one thing that I noticed was that having read the comics a while ago, I haven't been kept up with the comics in a while, but he looks just like his character in the comics. Oh wow, he does. Yeah, that's awesome. I just showed Tiny everyone. Yeah. And I have really high hopes because I want to see how he does, because I've only seen him in Straight Outta Compton. I'd like to see him in a role to get a good gauge of how of what kind of range he has as an actor. Yeah. And I do want to mention I really loved his scene with Eugene in the beginning with them. There. I was just hearing Eugene say, "I respect the hair game." Yeah. It was so funny to me. Oh, Eugene. Yeah. So, yeah, and I didn't see the promos or anything for it, but I feel like there had to have been a promo with Daryl on the motorcycle with the things behind him. I heard. Yeah, that had to have been in the promos because that was way too. That felt like I was watching a promo for The Walking Dead in the middle of The Walking Dead. Yeah. So yeah, I still have 20 minutes. When we finish recording, I'm probably going to finish the episode and then all that. But so far I'm into it. I think that it could be interesting. I'm basically, having read the comics, and comic readers will probably agree with me here, or they'll know what I'm saying here, is that I'm at this point in the comics and at this point in the story, they're in Alexandria. Alexandria is an interesting place for the characters to be in, but really, I'm just waiting for them to introduce a specific character. I think I know who you're talking about, but I haven't read that far, but I've heard rumors. Yeah. Yep. We'll see how they handle it. There's no way that they can translate it to the show. There's no way, but there are events surrounding this character that I'm curious if they'll go for it in the books or in the show, or if they won't play it safe. Yeah, because it's going to be interesting. I don't know when, but it'll be interesting at some point. It has me very excited for the season. So now it's just like a waiting game of when that wears off and they have subpar episodes. Right. It's basically what it is. It's just like, well, in 3 weeks I could be singing an entirely different tune. Right. We'll see. Such is the case with The Walking Dead. Yes. So, should I go on to my potpourri? Please do. All right. So, I made a promise to you listeners last week that I was going to check out a lot of new fall TV. And I did, for the most part. I fulfilled my promise. I did not get to watch Scream Queens because I think the pilot was a lot longer than I expected, and honestly, that was the lowest. That was the one that I was least interested in seeing. Well, one of the ones I was least interested in seeing, and I just didn't get around to it. And I'm sure I probably won't like it because I don't like Ryan Murphy that much, but. The ones that I did watch is I watched the pilot episode of Quantico. I watched 13 minutes of the pilot episode of Minority Report. And I also watched the pilots for Grandfathered, The Grinder, and the Hulu original series Casual. So I'll just go through these pretty briefly.
I'm really curious about Quantico.
Okay, interesting.
I'm very curious about
Nice. So I'll start off with that one.
Yeah.
Quantico is about a group of diverse but really gorgeous FBI recruits at Quantico for training. Because it's a network show, they all have to be just stunningly good looking. Which,
yes.
Whatever. But it's interesting because it takes what the narrative device or the narrative structure of it is. It opens up with the main character surrounded by rubble of Grand Central Station.
Wow.
After a bomb has exploded. And then it flashes back to 9 months ago. And it goes to like her first day at Quantico that it plays up some kind of network drama tropes. Like she has sex with a guy that she meets on a plane who just happens to be in her academy.
Oh God!
Which there are reasons, like it's not as ridiculous as it sounds because there's extenuating circumstances that lead like you can tell there's a reason for it wasn't a chance encounter, it just happens to be there. There was a reason for it. But there's a bunch of different characters. I'm not going to go through all of them because I'm on the fence on whether or not I'm going to actually follow this show at all. It did just get picked up for I think either a full season order or just they ordered more episodes. I think it was a full season order because they got their back 9.
Okay.
So, the show interchanges between present day, where the bomb went off, and the past. So that kind of didn't really work well for me because I was kind of hoping that it would be more like a you just see a flash of it and then that's how they hook you at the end or something like that. But then again, I guess you got to keep it going week to week.
Right.
Seeing the interplay of the recruits is fine. It was okay. It was I hate this in network shows so much. I sent a message in the pod chat to you and Mike Tiny about this, but it's like you get like the assistant director of Quantico or whatever the title is. Like she is talking to one of her subordinates or something like that, and then like there's a line of dialogue where it's just the two of them talking. The guy says something to her, and then she says, "You got to remember, I'm not your partner anymore, and I'm not your girlfriend anymore." It's like, like the way that she says it was like it made more sense the way that I said it, but the vernacular that she used, the actual words, it's like, okay, no one talks like that. No, like you're telling this to the audience. You're.
She might as well have been looking right in the camera.
Exactly. It felt like that. It was like basically she was like, "Hey guys, I used to bang this guy and we used to be partners, but now I'm I'm on top of him, not like literally, but like in the chain of command, I'm in charge of him basically." Yeah. So it's just I hate that kind of forced exposition, down your throats kind of dialogue. And,
by the way, doesn't my rack look great?
Right.
You know. That's what I think of when I watch the promos. I've seen the promo for Quantico about 20 times.
Yeah.
Because like watching like Modern Family and stuff, which is on ABC, I see the promos for it, and I was just like, that looks so network to me.
It is. It's like one of their. And it's so goofy because it's Quantico. It's like the training academy for the FBI.
Right.
And their like first assignment is that everyone in the academy has like they have these case files for them on these tables, and then they're like their boss is like, you're like, investigation is the big point of the FBI. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these files, have everything that we've got on your classmates at the academy, except one item has been redacted. Your job will be to find out what that item is. And like they just randomly pick, and then that leads to this really kind of just ham-fisted thrill in the middle of the pilot that's ends with one of the characters dying. It's
jeez.
Yeah, it's so I'm not going to spoil it, but it was so just really ham-fisted and forced. It was, I don't know, but by the end of the episode, it was, I was kind of into it a little bit. And when I say that there's diversity in there, it's like literally like the opening shot of the episode is like all across the world, like all of these different types of people there. And then since there's the threat of terrorism and it's on network TV, one of them has to be a Muslim woman to kind of make American audiences think, is it her? And obviously they're not going to do that.
Right.
But they do have like a very strange subplot for that character that I don't know how to explain it. This is a spoiler. It's such a weird, the plot thread that they established with that is that someone notices something off about her in the middle of the episode. And then there's the end of that episode shows the reason why that thing was off. And so it introduces a new mystery surrounding this character that's so ridiculous. It's like, it's weird. It feels to me like we have this show that is leading toward an event, like a big time event. So what this character's subplot specifically tells to me is that they're introducing this red herring mystery so that audiences will think like what's going on with her, and that'll burn up maybe 2-3 episodes of time, because she's not going to be involved in it or anything. And it was weird. I can't go into specifics about it because it's
so new. It's
so new, but it's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. And then
she's kind of the star, isn't she? No,
that's another character. The star of the character, I don't know what.
I can't remember what her name is.
Yeah,
she was in something else maybe, and that's why she's famous. But I haven't seen that thing.
Priyanka Chopra.
There you go.
Yeah, what was she in?
I don't know.
She's an Indian actress.
Yeah,
and she was in. Oh, no, I think she's just a Bollywood star.
Oh,
she came out from Bollywood.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
Yeah, and she's good. And it's interesting because the pilot ends on a note that I didn't expect it to go the way that it did, because I kind of thought that I can't do it without spoiling it, but the kind of hook at the end of the episode in the present day after the attack puts her in a very unique position. And it kind of felt a little bit reminiscent of 24 on its best days, or in its best season, I should say. But, I don't know if it's enough to really, really hook me into it.
Okay.
So yeah, Quantico was, I don't know. It was okay. But, Tiny.
Yeah.
The next show... I only got 13 minutes into it.
Yeah.
The pilot episode of Minority Report. Yeah, I really like the style of the future tech, but the story just didn't grab me. It takes place after the movie, and it's where the precogs are like living their lives, and one of them is he still has these visions of the future, so he's trying to prevent these crimes from happening, and he's failing miserably. So he's going. So he meets up with a detective, and I think from there it becomes a procedural that is just a case of the week kind of thing. Didn't really hook me in those first 13 minutes. Like I said, I really liked the style of the future tech, but that was more just like I like the idea of investigators looking at a crime scene and using what's the word I'm looking for? Augmented reality in order to look to see what was there before.
Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, not really that good.
Did I hear that it didn't do very well either, ratings wise?
Yeah, it didn't do well. I think there's been like 4 episodes, but I don't think it's done much.
Okay.
Of anything substantial, and ratings wise, it's no Quantico. It hasn't gotten a full season pickup, I don't think. But couple other pilots I watched. I believe these are both on Fox, but Grandfathered and The Grinder. Tiny, do you know anything about Grandfathered?
No.
So it's a sitcom starring John Stamos, who has aged incredibly well.
Yeah.
Like, that dude is just handsome as hell.
Yeah.
It's him, Josh Peck, Christina Milian, and Paget Brewster. And John Stamos plays kind of a... in my notes, I have him listed as playing a Barney Stinson at 50 kind of character, which is exactly what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Even down to kind of some of the similar mannerisms that it feels like he's borrowing a little bit from Neil Patrick Harris.
Okay.
Which is okay. I mean, it works for him because, like I said, he's handsome as hell.
Mm-hmm.
But he's like, he can't commit to a relationship. He doesn't believe in relationships, all that stuff. So he's a successful restaurateur, I guess, or restaurateur.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just made myself look like an idiot.
That's a fun word.
Yeah. Then one day, Josh Peck shows up and says, "Hey, I'm your son. You've never met me. By the way, here's my daughter, your grandfather."
Wow.
And that premise alone, like that shocks John Stamos, and he has a hard time adjusting to it. And that premise alone is actually strong enough there to sustain at least the first season.
Mm-hmm.
But then they kind of just really overplayed their hand. And a few scenes later, they introduced that Josh Peck's character is in love with the mother of his child, who they're just friends, but they had like one night together, and she had a baby. So they're raising it together, but not together because they're just friends.
Right.
Yet he's in love with her. So he sought out the ladies' man dad that he's never met in his life just to get his advice on wooing her. Which that's just like that's
stupid.
It's so dumb. It's way too far. It's so dumb. But from there, it's not that bad really. It's it has kind of an endearing quality to it. There's a lot of chemistry and potential in the kind of shattered relationship between John Stamos and Paget Brewster, actually, who plays Josh Peck's mom in it.
Okay.
The pilot kind of leaves on a sweet note that hints at their relationship previous to the kid being born. Josh Peck's character being born.
Okay.
And it also has a nice reference to Kramer versus Kramer, which is a really good movie.
Nice. Is it a half-hour sitcom?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a 30-minute sitcom. It's available on Hulu right now. Yeah. And kind of following the pattern here. Grandfathered is pretty good. The Grinder, not really that great.
Really?
Yeah, it's first of all, do you know anything about the show?
Nothing at all.
Okay, so The Grinder stars Rob Lowe, Fred Savage, Mary Elizabeth Ellis, and I almost said Winstead, and William Devane from 24.
Okay.
He was in something else before 24, but he was
I can't picture him.
Yeah, he was the Secretary of State that Jack Bauer worked for in seasons 4 and 6. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Audrey Raines is that?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so anyway, executive producer on The Grinder is Nicholas Stoller, who that piqued my interest because I like him a lot. He directed Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Okay.
And a couple other things. I think he was involved in Undeclared as well. So that kind of got me excited. But the plot is that Rob Lowe plays an actor in a midlife crisis. Who also Rob Lowe has aged amazingly well.
Oh yeah.
So screw them. But he's going through kind of a midlife crisis after the legal drama that he starred in called The Grinder airs its series finale. So the show opens with him at his brother, played by Fred Savage, at his house with his family and their father, watching the series finale. And then Fred Savage plays kind of a bitter, like in the shadow younger brother guy who he's an actual attorney with an actual law practice and in this kind of small town. And so Rob Lowe kind of decides to live with his lawyer brother and his family and insert himself into his legal practice. And the premise sounds kind of interesting, but it's kind of silly, really.
Yeah.
And William Devane as their dad is like, he's inexplicably excited about the idea. Like, I think he's also a lawyer in the show, and it makes no sense to me why he'd be so excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So So the pilot kind of goes through this whole thing where Rob Lowe convinces his brother's client to go to trial, even though it's just a simple eviction case. And there's a big spectacle over it, like news crews cover it because it's the Grinder, like on the case. And the actual trial is really over the top, really silly, really just dumb, goofy.
No.
Yeah. And, it has some redeeming qualities, like Kumail Nanjiani, who I love. He's awesome.
He's fantastic.
Oh, my God. Yeah, I got to see...
funny.
Oh, yeah. I got to see him live at Old National Center.
Nice.
Over the summer during Gen Con, actually. It was part of their Cards Against Humanity thing.
Nice.
He killed it. He was amazing. Never use a urinal the same way again. But anyway, so it was kind of funny seeing him because he just has a bit part in the pilot. I imagine he might come back in future episodes, but it was funny because he was kind of being the straight man in the ridiculous legal scenario in the courtroom. So I probably won't revisit it. I might go back and I might get caught up with Grandfathered and report back on that, but I don't think the Grinder is really for me. Finally, I've been talking a lot.
Yeah, you have.
Yeah, sorry.
It's okay.
So rounding us out, since I didn't get to watch Scream Queens like I promised, I think there might be one other show that I said that I was going to watch, but I never got around to. Instead of that, I watched Casual. Have you heard about this show at all?
Nothing.
Okay, so it's an original Hulu presentation, original Hulu series on Hulu. Say Hulu more times. And it's kind of about a group of a man, his sister, and her daughter living under the same roof. They're all single, and they're kind of living single lives in the same house. So it's an interesting thing. Like the man they're all like troubled characters. It opens with the three of them at the funeral of the man and sister's dad. And it's like they're doing like a running commentary on their blasé attitude toward the idea of mourning the man. It's really off-putting, and there's a lot of cynical comments about their mother's, like the way that they perceive their mother as like feigned grieving over the casket. It's really weird. It's from the beginning, it does not hook you onto these characters. Then later on in the episode, you kind of learn that the man is depressed and he's just kind of a non-committal kind of man whore kind of guy. I think he survived a suicide attempt before the series began.
Yeah.
And then the sister's kind of, or his sister's going through a bitter divorce, and the daughter is a teenager who has problems. Like she has guy problems. She's promiscuous.
Okay.
Which is exactly how I wrote in my notes, and that was not intentional. She's a bit promiscuous, and she's trying to find her self sexually, I guess.
Yeah.
And the man owns and runs an online dating site.
Oh, okay.
So it's got some pieces there, but the show just tries really hard from the beginning to just cast the characters in a really unflattering light, and they do get a little better as the pilot plays out, but I couldn't really get attached to the story or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if I won't watch anymore. But there's some funny bits about like the man sets. He goes into the dating site and basically sets him up with a girl and his sister up with a man, and they both go to the same restaurant and have their dates separately.
Wow.
And they each go pretty awful. It's pretty funny because his date is with a woman who is played by I believe she's played by I can't remember her name, but she's the wife of Glenn Howerton.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. And she plays like a very off-putting like fitness nut, and there's some dialogue there that's pretty funny and almost worth checking the show out. I should mention that the pilot episode and the show was the pilot episode was directed by, oh my God, what's his name? The guy that directed Up in the Air. Jason Reitman.
Jason Reitman.
Yeah. And I think he's an EP on the show.
Okay.
So it's interesting.
Is there anyone famous in it?
Nope, not off the top of my head.
Wow.
Although I will say that the guy that plays the main man, the one man of the three, he kind of has this, like he has an interesting charisma to him, but he's kind of he kind of masks his charisma in a veneer of kind of wry humor and asshole-ish behavior. It's kind of like he is putting on a Jason Sudeikis vibe, without the kind of endearing like good-naturedness that
I see
that Sudeikis has perfected.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is my report on the fall TV shows.
Yeah.
The new ones, a handful of them. Let me know what you think if you've watched any of them or watch any shows that are new that you think that I should check out and then probably won't get around to. Yeah, so that about does it. Like I said, we're going to Heartland Film Festival where we got press passes and we're going to report on that.
And we hope to see many of you at Shocktober in Irvington too.
Screw that. We hope to see all of you at Shocktober in Irvington too. Like everyone. Like if you're listening to this, you need to come to Shocktober in Irvington, even if you're not in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, we do hope to see you guys there. And if you are going to Shocktober in Irvington and you are going because you heard us talk about it, come up and talk to us. After the event or whatever, because we would love to hear from you because we don't get to really talk to people that listen to the podcast in person that aren't our friends and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that about does it. And also, we might have something special next week for the holiday on Wednesday, which is Back to the Future Day. We're still kind of working on that. We might have something for you. I hope we do, but we'll see. On that note, next week we'll release Shocktober in Irvington, I think, and the special episode. So that's what you got to look forward to next week. And anything you want to say, Tiny?
I love you. All of you.
Okay, cool. I mean, I like you as a friend, Tiny. I mean, you're cool, but,
Yeah.
This got weird.
It did. Okay. Enjoy your Shocktobers, everybody.
Yes, enjoy your Shocktobers, and see you Friday.
Yep.
And I love you too. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
I'm going to preface this by saying I'm really single. The pun that I made was, and I quote, "The crew of the Enterprise were surprised when the transporter beamed up a dog. The dog, crap, I just I hope this is going to be long-winded. I'm sorry.
I was actually sitting here thinking wow, he actually remembers it word by word. He's not going to pull it up.
Oh, Tiny, I've been telling this to people with pride for the last several days.
Nice.
So, okay, here it is. And the pun that I made was on the Facebook page, and here it is, and I quote,
"Thank you for listening to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at ObsessiveViewer.com, or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@ObsessiveViewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at ObsessiveViewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/TheObsessiveViewer and follow us on Twitter at ObsessiveViewer, at ObsessiveTiny, and at IamMikeWhite. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, ObsessiveBookNerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.